It was a hot August day in 2005 in the southeastern United States when the first reports of a tropical storm began to emerge in the Caribbean. Initially, Hurricane Katrina appeared to be no more than one of the many storms that hit the region each year. However, as it moved westward, the weather phenomenon rapidly intensified. Within days, it became a Category 5 hurricane, one of the most powerful in history, and its path took it directly toward the city of New Orleans, one of America's most iconic cities, known for its vibrant culture, music, and unique architecture. As Katrina approached, meteorologists and authorities began issuing warnings. The city, located largely below sea level, relied on a system of levees and pumps to protect against flooding. But fear turned to panic when experts reported that the levees could not withstand the force of the storm. As the wind began to howl and the first rains fell, the population braced for the worst. Many evacuated, but thousands stayed behind either because of lack of resources, fear, or the belief that the city would withstand another onslaught. On the night of August 29, the hurricane made landfall on the Louisiana coast. With winds of up to 280 kilometers per hour, Katrina devastated everything in its path. Streets became raging rivers, and houses, which seemed firm and solid, crumbled like paper. As the storm progressed, levees began to give way, and within hours, low-lying areas of New Orleans were flooded. The city, famous for its music, food, and warmth, was transformed into an apocalyptic landscape, with only the roofs of houses standing out. The images of destruction were devastating. Entire families took refuge on the roofs of their homes, while others sought shelter in places like the New Orleans Convention Center, where thousands huddled in desperate conditions. Temperatures rose and the lack of food, clean water, and medical care became an alarming problem. The image of the city that was once a symbol of life and culture had been transformed into a scene of desolation and suffering. Days passed, and the government's response was slow. Images of people trapped, some in inhumane conditions, traveled the world, while the media reported a humanitarian crisis in the middle of the 21st century. The devastation was such that water had covered the city, and many lives had been lost in the chaos. Those who managed to survive faced not only the material destruction, but also the emotional trauma left by the hurricane. Uncertainty became the constant companion of the survivors as they tried to rebuild their lives while dealing with the loss of loved ones. After the storm, rescue work began, but the challenges were immense. The city was in a state of emergency, and the task of recovering the missing and helping those left behind seemed endless. Evacuation centers were established, and the national community began to mobilize, sending supplies and resources to the region. Volunteers from all over the country arrived to assist in the recovery, offering their time and effort to a city that had lost so much. But the recovery process would be long and painful. As the months passed, Katrina's scars remained visible in the city and in the hearts of its people. Rebuilding New Orleans became a monumental task, a collective effort that required not only resources, but also a deep emotional commitment. The tragedy had brought with it an opportunity to rethink the city's infrastructure and make it more resilient to future disasters. However, the memory of the devastation was still present, and many residents struggled to find a path back to normalcy. Hurricane Katrina not only left physical scars on the city, it also created a renewed sense of community among the survivors. Stories of heroism and solidarity emerged from the ashes, and the voices of those who had suffered began to be heard. Communities came together in an effort to rebuild not only the buildings, but also the social and cultural life that had been torn apart by the storm. The festivals, traditions, and music that are the lifeblood of New Orleans began to re-emerge, and with them hope for a better future. Over the years, New Orleans has risen from the ashes. Rebuilding efforts have revitalized entire neighborhoods, and new businesses have sprung up in the city. Katrina's scars, though still present, have become a symbol of the resilience and strength of its people. However, the memory of those tragic days remains vivid, a reminder of the challenges overcome and the importance of preparing for future disasters. Hurricane Katrina left an indelible mark on history, but it also forged a new chapter for the city, where the memory of those days is intertwined with the hope and rebirth of a place that refuses to be forgotten. Although the hurricane devastated much of the city and left a deep wound in the souls of its inhabitants, it also gave them the opportunity to rebuild their homes and revitalize their community with a determination that only emerges in the darkest of times. Thus, New Orleans continues to be a beacon of culture, music, and life, defying the odds and celebrating the indomitable will of its people.